thank you everybody coming back for this session. So the first thing, just quickly to run through it, I will be moderating this session, I've been told. We have two workshops, one on education, resetting education, which Professor Wanze will speak. But before that, it will be Dr. Biki Minyuku will do the plenary session. And then the last workshop will be the constitutional question and the pathway to Swiss model by Dele Abegunde, right? So what I have to say is brief. My focus and the subject I want to speak about is what I call unlearn to relearn. This theme, as you know, is a fundamental theme that we use to wrap around the fatherland. So it occurred to me that most of the times what we're doing in that forum is that some people have an advanced information and knowledge, and some of us learn from it. And sometimes what they're doing also, the information they give us is making us to unlearn. What I mean by that is empty what you thought you knew before, and then you find a new information to replace it. So without taking much of a time, can I briefly give you one or two thought processes on this subject of unlearn to relearn? It was Alvin Toffler, an American writer regarded as one of the world's outstanding futurists, that said that the illiterate of the 21st century will not be those who cannot read and write, but those who cannot learn, unlearn, and relearn. That will be the illiterates of the future. And so the question is, how ready are we to really learn, unlearn, or relearn our history in particular? My paper is concentrated around the history side of things because it's important. Most of the things that we talked out in the first session was more of the history side. All the papers came and gave us some information of the historic side of democracy, the historic side of police reforms. And so the question is, how do we unlearn or relearn our history, heritage, culture, faith, enterprise, governance, or pre-colonial era? How do we unlearn and relearn those things? What do we really know about our fatherland, the 371 ethnic nationalities? What do we know? How far can we take our knowledge? You know, some people are very brilliant in talking about what happened since 1960 to present day. Some people will talk about it since 1804 to present day. What about before that? What do we know? How far back can we go? And these are questions. So I was sort of trying to address. So there are just some of things that come to mind that my paper, I'm hoping that I will be able to draw attention to. One of them is this subject of history. It's very important because I kind of find that everything we're talking about, I'm not sure whether we fully appreciate the idea and the importance of history. And I liked what one of the a historian, how they described it, said, history have been argued in some quarters as the most important subject of any educational system, surpassing science and humanity in importance. Within its fabric, it holds the culture, traditions, beliefs, ethos, and reason necessary for continued existence of people. If compromised by falsification and omission, which are frequently imposed by outsiders, then that civilization will decay and finally collapse. So if you look at all the things we've been talking about, you have to say to yourself, Nigeria, the story and the history of Nigeria, are we saying that it is possible that the whole issue about us have been falsified, omitted, and we're experiencing what looks like a decay and collapse? Is it possible that that's what's going on? And this is one of the worrying things for me when I looked at this subject, and I'm thinking we've got to go back to history and understand the importance of it. Why should we learn and understand our history? You know, so and say, I'm sure most will agree with me that when it comes to the history of Nigeria today, by that I mean the memory, discovery, collections, organizations, presentations, interpretation of events that's taking place in that geographical space called Nigeria, we will all feel that there's a saturation of high number of elites, historians, academic scholars, political leaders who have really and truly operated on false and outdated information, and in some instances, downright fraudulent account of history of Nigeria and its people. It is just beggars belief as you go back to the history. People will knowingly know that something is wrong, that that story is not right, and they will bend the history of Nigeria to achieve its purpose. So we have been a victim of history, the misinterpretation of it. I was looking at Max Sileon book, latest book, 2021, where he wrote, the title of the book is a short story of conquest and rule, Nigeria, a short story of conquest and rule. In his book, he said, most accounts of Nigeria and Africa colonization were written by British officials presenting colonialism as a noble civilizing mission to rid Nigeria and Africa of its barbaric superstition and corrupt tribal leadership. And he went on to say, thanks to that skewed writing of history, many Nigerians today still have empire nostalgia and view the colonial era through their rose-tinted glasses. And I thought that was very instructive. So I began to ask the question, is it because that we've forgotten to look at our own history, study it, use it to learn and unlearn what is making life very difficult for us? In the paper, I started looking at unlearning. What is it? What does it mean? And I get the impression that it is a whole new currency. The idea of unlearning is now fast becoming an enduring core attribute of future leaders. It's a ways we are learning cannot be achieved without us acquiring what is classified as unlearning skill. In other words, for us to continue to learn, we've got to find a way to empty our mind and empty the spaces of things that have been blocking us. We got to create that space. We got to, unlearning is becoming the most important form of knowledge, growth areas. It's highlighting the fact that unlearning is fast becoming the new learning. And let's be clear, unlearning does not lead with words, it leads with action. So the first step in the cycle of unlearning requires courage, self-awareness, and humility to accept that our beliefs, mindsets, or behaviors could equally be limiting our own potentials. Our ability to open and operate effectively in the near future will not depend on how well we've learned more, but on how well we are able to unlearn in order to relearn. There are consequences if we and when we choose not to unlearn. We all need to unlearn to relearn. And if we are always trying to be normal, we will never know how amazing we can be. We cannot resolve a problem by using the same thinking that created it. And that's what Einstein actually said that. And said, so only through courage, curiosity, and through the identification of what we need to unlearn, e.g. like the history of Nigeria, that's when we can take the next steps to unlearn. And only then will we experience a breakthrough. Let me get quickly to the conclusion side of it. In my mind, the message that's coming across for me is to say, in a time of drastic change, it is the new learners who will inherit the future. For the learned with no inbuilt unlearning and relearning capability will be those that will find themselves equipped to live in a world that no longer exists. I therefore challenge all of us to adopt learning, unlearning, and relearning culture, because we all do have a skin in this game called Nigeria. Thank you.